So if this is your first time listening, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m., Ruben and I do this segment called Office Hours, where Ruben Amaro, former general manager of the Philadelphia Phillies, and now he's stuck sitting in here with me.
Not stuck. Enjoying
what
it.
a turnaround.
I enjoy it. Love it.
So this is a segment where we ask Rube to put that GM hat back on and answer questions as if he was the guy making these tough decisions. So there are a few tough decisions to make as the Phillies GM. So you got a couple contracts coming up. Kyle Schwarber, JT Realmuto, Ranger Suarez. Kyle Schwarber obviously, seems to be the name that pops up the most. He's been the most consistently good this season. I think that they should extend him and give the man whatever he wants because he's so important to this team, both on and off the field. That being said, Ranger Suarez dealing.
Yeah.
He led the Phillies to an 8-0 win over the Blue Jays last night. And even JT Realmuto, best catcher in baseball, he's had some offensive struggles, but he's really been picking it up as of late. So how do you handle all three of those guys? Is there a chance that they can extend more than just one of them?
Well, I mean, there's a chance that they could extend more than one of them. My feeling is this. I think that Kyle Schwarber is certainly a priority one. He'd be 1A. And I think that there's some mutual, I think that there's some mutual interest in getting that done. But the issue is, the guy has a choice. He can do whatever he wants. And if I'm him and I'm betting on myself, then I wait till the end of the season and see, unless he feels so enamored with being here in Philadelphia that he goes hell-bent to try to get something done here. If I was him, I'd be like, okay, let's go to free agency and let's see what my value is, and we'll go from there. And then my number two, this is going to sound strange, but my number two, just based on what's out there in the free agent market and the importance of that position, my second priority would be JT Realmuto. And it's because, and I believe this in my heart of hearts, it is the most important position on the field that's not on the mound.
Wow.
And since you are basing your talent and your ability and your success on their biggest strength, which is pitching, and starting pitching in particular, I really want somebody who can manage that part of the game, and that's why JT would be the second priority for me. And only because, even though I'd love to bring Ranger Suarez back, the reality of it is I have pieces in Abel and Painter that can sort of cover me as far as, the rotation is concerned. You can never have too much, but if I was going to prioritize, I'd go Kyle, Realmuto, and then Suarez.
Do you think JT would take a shorter-term contract, like a 1-2 year contract?
I don't know. It kind of depends. Again, it's going to be one of those situations where he's going to have to go out on the market and find out what he can get. And listen, he's not as, a prodigious offensive player as he has been in the past, and that's pretty clear. The numbers, show that. But his importance as a leader on the team and a leader of the staff is something that you can't quantify. And it's an important part of what this team's about. And can you rely on a guy like Marchand and Stubbs to be your battery, to be those guys? I don't know that.
Yeah.
I would take my chances with JT behind the plate, even though he may not be as offensive as he has been in the past. I think the importance of what he does behind the plate is also something pretty significant.
So I still have a few questions from myself, but also went to Twitter, to X, to ask for people to submit questions if they had any. Drew asked an interesting one just as we're on the JT topic. How many seasons do you think he has left in the tank? We kind of just covered that, but will they all be at catcher and with the Phillies? And does he have future manager material? That's the interesting part to me.
The answer is yes on the second one because he understands the game. I think the best managers seem to be from the catching position because they get to see the game in a totally different way. They run every single pitch of the game. And so they have a different perspective. They actually physically have a different perspective because they watch the game out instead of watching the game in. And so, that part of it, I think that's why you have Bruce Bochy and Mike Scioscia and, Joe Madden. They're all catching guys. You got our current manager, Topper. He's a catcher.
Yep.
All the best managers, I think, or a high percentage of them are from the catching position.
Yeah. No, it is it is an interesting point.
I think it's somebody that if he chooses to, I don't know. He's got a big family. He's a big family man, and he's probably made enough money in his career to be able to shut it down. But if he has interest in doing it, I'd certainly consider it. Dusty Wathan's another guy because he's a managerial candidate for me and has been for a long time. Hasn't gotten an opportunity, but again, another guy who was a catching guy. And so you start thinking about all the people who have caught over the years, and a lot of them are, the reason why is because they have a different perspective on the game.
Yeah. All right. So Otto Kemp was brought up from the Iron Pigs. He started at third. He's been playing first base, doing pretty well. He's been doing well offensively, too. Bryce Harper out with that lingering wrist issue. Don't know exactly when he's going to return. What is Otto Kemp's future with this team? And this is where this might be more of like I'm asking you to put on a manager cap as well as a GM cap here. But do you keep Otto Kemp up? And assuming that you do, when Bryce Harper is brought back, how do you rearrange the field?
Yeah, how do I move the pieces on the deck?
Yeah.
I think more than anything else, you have to consider him in left field because I don't think that he'll be able to play second base effectively enough, defensively enough, and it's too important in a position. There's some challenges in the middle of the field, so they're going to have to, make sure that they can catch the baseball consistently. And if they want to keep the bat in the lineup, then they got to consider maybe throwing him out in left field. Now, I have not seen him play left field. I think that he can play it. He's just right now he's holding down the fort at first base because of Harper not being around. But he's starting to get his feet wet and is starting to get a little bit more grounded as far as his offense is concerned. And I think it's cool that Topper has given this guy an opportunity to play and said, "Okay, you're going to go play."
Yeah. And
he struggled his first few days. But I think the feeling was that at some point he was going to get an opportunity to be a good quality offensive player. And he's starting to roll, and that's a great sign. I love the way he handles a bat. Will he be able to do it for the next 3 or 4 months? I don't know. I hope he does because he has that skill set. But I think that they at the very least, I think they got to consider maybe throwing him in left field, and so whether it's a platoon, maybe it's a platoon situation out there in left. They can always defense for him later on in the game if they don't feel like he's strong enough defensively. They can move some pieces around and have whether it's and they've been doing it lately when they get a lead, and it makes a lot of sense. Topper's going to start making those moves. You have really good outfielders, I think, defensively. For Marsh, I think he's a very good corner outfielder, much better corner outfielder than he is a center fielder as far as defense is concerned. You have Rojas, who's a very good center fielder defensively, and you have Kepler, who's outstanding on the corner. So you have some people that you can throw out there and feel a little bit more comfortable defensively. So there's some movement that you can make to make that team a little bit better.
So you would put Kepler right field? I
would slide him into right
if Kemp goes to left field. It really is like musical chairs.
Well, I mean, and I would put Kepler and Otto Kemp possibly in a platoon situation, but when it comes late in the game and you want your defense and you're winning a game, then I would, if I was the manager, I would put Rojas in center, which he's done, put Kepler in right, and then put Marsh in left, because Marsh is a really good left fielder.
Yeah. It's interesting. Kepler was in. They did that with Kepler late in the game last night, I think. He played a little bit at right
He's outstanding
field.
in the corners. He's one of the better corner outfielders in baseball, I think, defensively.
Yeah. All right, one more from me. Justin Crawford. We have to ask, the obligatory Justin Crawford question every week for the GM. So I know he's had like some quad... I don't even want to call it an injury issue. He's been apparently progressing. Like you mentioned, the manager has to know all of these things. Rob Thompson is asked about Justin Crawford and all of his availabilities. So he always gives us an update. And as of yesterday, I think he said Crawford was starting to do some, pregame work to stretch that quad out. Will we see Justin Crawford in a Philadelphia Phillies uniform before August?
Ooh, I think you might. I think a lot of it depends on his overall health, and I think a lot of it also depends on whether Bryce Harper comes back. If Bryce Harper comes back, I'd like to see this kid.
Do you think there's a chance Bryce Harper won't come back at all?
No, when he comes back.
Oh. I thought you said if.
When he comes back and the team is offensively full bore, in other words, they have all of their guys, and if they still have the struggles in center field offensively that they've had, even though Brandon Marsh has actually swung the bat well over the last few days, hopefully he gets hot and stays hot. I think it's really important for Crawford to come to the big leagues and not be the savior. He needs to be a guy to add on and give a little depth in the back end of that lineup in the 9-hole and just let him get on base and steal a bag in front of Turner and do some things. He can't be the savior of the team. That's not his role.
Yeah.
And hopefully they're going well offensively. And how did it go well offensively? They have Harper in the lineup. And I think once he's back in the lineup, I think is something that would be something that they would consider more readily than just having him come up to the big leagues and think that this guy's going to save this team.
Yeah, and that is always the worry, even with a guy like Otto Kemp, when someone, just a new fresh face, fresh bat comes in, it's, I think a lot of times fans expect them to be this, spark plug. And sometimes that can happen, and sometimes, you have to remember these guys are like 21, 22 years old. Well,
and
Otto Kemp's older than that.
And they've never taken an at bat in the major leagues.
Right. So
it's different. I will assure you, I know.
Required. Yeah. Yes, you would certainly know. You want to get in, you have a question for Rube, 215-592-9494. We're going to get to the phones in a minute. But Luke, do you have any questions for this segment of Office Hours?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the trade deadline is about, a month and a half away?
Yeah, I think so.
We can all assume.
August 1st? Is it August 1st this year?
It's usually August 1st, July 31st.
Yeah, I thought it was end of July. But
right
either
in that window. But we can pretty much assume the Phillies are going to be buyers at the deadline, barring a just ridiculous losing streak over the next month and a half. So
correct.
I guess, when do you start checking in with other teams for positions that you'll need? Like, have you already started that, or is that kind of okay, we've hit the All-Star break or we've hit July, let me start just putting some feelers
I
out
think
there?
that happens literally from the first pitch made on opening day. I think things start to sharpen up and get bigger and more important and more focused later on. And I think that's why the sellers, they like to hold off because they want the buyers to be as, I don't know, I guess, as desperate as possible. And they want to try to build. It's like it's a marketplace thing. Like, how badly do you need my player? Show me how badly you need him. And some teams have been preemptive. I think the Dodgers, picked up a reliever. They've had so many issues with their rotation as far as health is concerned. It's comical almost. And you knew that it was going to happen. You didn't know it was going to happen at this rate. So the Dodgers have been, they've been hit pretty hard. But I think that, Dave Dombrowski, I can assure you he's been on the phone plenty. And he has been probably from April on. I mean, that part of it doesn't ever end. It does seem to heat up as you get closer and closer, obviously. And with good reason, because if I'm selling, I want to hold as long as I can and make sure that there's as many buyers as there possibly can. And it's so different nowadays because so many teams can get in the playoffs compared to when I was at the seat and in the assistant GM seat. That you sort of hope that there's more, buyers than sellers, and it puts you in a really, really strong position.
So since there's more opportunity to get into the postseason, those teams that are on the fence, like they're right around 500, maybe a game up, game down, would they kind of turn to being buyers instead of maybe sellers? Because it all depends on their outlook.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what they really believe. And, some teams, I'd like to think that most teams, if they're, 4 or 5 games out of the wild card, that they give themselves a chance to try to be a buyer. I'd love to see that, but more and more you find teams that say, yeah, you know what, the hell, let's go for next year. I don't think that's fair to the fans. Mm-hmm. I think it's not fair to the people who are paying, big money to try to have their team have success. I think the whole point of being in professional baseball or any professional sport is to win. But you also have to be realistic when you're trying to make moves. So there, you'll see certain teams go totally one way, and other teams go totally the other way, and a lot of it depends on how they assess their ball club overall.
Well, I think I saw a report. I don't know how true it was that the Phillies made another push for Mason Miller with the Athletics, even though he didn't pitch well against the Phillies when they were out there. But they said no. Even though they're a team that really isn't gonna do much, they said no.
Because he's got so much. They have control of him for so long. They have another like 4.5 years or 5 years. That they feel that they're going to be a contending team sometime soon. They have some pretty good young players that they are trying to build around, and they've improved over the last couple of years. And they feel like they might need this guy to close some games out for them when they become a contending team.